Good afternoon. Welcome. Thank you for taking the time to watch my video about St. Augustine. Augustine was a really influential figure in the early Catholic Church. He was a bishop, he was a theologian, he was a philosopher, and he had a lot to say about the doctrine and the dogma of early Christianity, and he had a huge influence on even the Christianity that we see and practice today. But he was also very influential in the field of education. Surprisingly, a lot of people don't know how influential Augustine was about in the field of education and the things he had to say. So that's what we want to spend the time talking about in the brief amount of time we're together. In addition to the influence that Augustine had on faith, he wrote many works such as City of God, um, Confessions, but he had some other works that he introduced that really dealt specifically with instruction and education. And one of those was on instructing newcomers. This was written in response to a letter by a clergyman known as Diogratius. That's what we're taught in the text. And Diogratius had a problem. He was responsible for instructing new Christian believers, but he was frustrated because he felt that his instructions they were boring, they were tedious. The students weren't learning anything, and he was getting bored. And so he came to Augustine with this problem. And it's really interesting that he came to Augustine. Why would he come to Augustine? Augustine, even prior to his conversion, was known as an orator. He was known as a master of rhetoric. And so after he converted to the Christian faith, he was still known as a master teacher. So that's why Diogratius came to him with this problem. So what Augustine told him in on instructing newcomers was it's not just the what, it's the how. So, in addition to content, he addressed things like instructor disposition. He addressed things like the learning environment and the comfort of students and removing distractions. He talked about how material was presented, which was just as important as what was presented. And he talked about knowing your students and the importance of getting to know where they are in order to get them where they need to be. And to better understand where Augustine was coming from with this advice or professional instruction he was giving Diogratius, it was informed by his philosophy of education. Augustine experienced a shift in his thinking towards education around the time of his conversion. Prior to his conversion, he felt like education was really an end in and of itself, but he came to believe after his conversion that education is a means to an end. Truth, ultimate truth, is found in God's word alone. So education can't get you there on its own. But education was not something that was not valuable or should be ignored. Rather, education was for a purpose. It was for equipping, and real education, successful education, resulted in a change in a person's attitudes, beliefs, and ultimately their actions. So, understanding where Augustine came from, what he thought about education, why is that important? Well, it's important because it weighs so heavily on what we do today in the field of education. Uh, Augustine emphasized relationships. So, as an instructor myself, working in a classroom today with adult students, it's so important to build a relationship with students, connect with students, let students get to know you, get to know your students and enjoy your job. We have a wonderful job where we get to come alongside people as they experience learning and transformation, and that's a blessing. And this allows you to engage your students. You know, when you fully engage with your students, that's when you are able to connect them with learning and help them accomplish what they're looking for, and in many cases change their lives, change their perspectives. And a key phrase that kept coming up in studying Augustine was students don't learn from instructors, students learn through instructors. And I think that really encapsulates St. Augustine's attitude towards instruction and education in general. And it's really something that's helped me, and I hope would help anyone watching this to inform their own philosophy of education.